Hi, and welcome to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm Ange McCabe, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, whole person leadership facilitator, and your host. The Human Side of Business podcast is fueled by the genuine curiosity to understand how personal characteristics and skills can be leveraged to drive individual and team performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately organizational success within business. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, expanding our learning edges, and exploring the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of organizations. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, and welcome to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm Ange McCabe, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance. I am a performance coach, HR professional, facilitator, and your host. The Human Side of Business podcast is fueled by the genuine curiosity to understand how personal characteristics and skills can be leveraged to drive individual and team performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately organizational success within business. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, expanding our learning edges, and exploring the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of organizations. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the Human Side of Business, where we explore what it really takes to lead with empathy, clarity, and impact in today's workplaces. I'm your host, Ange McCabe, and today I'm joined by one of our well-loved Intuitive consultants, Maria Maycock. Maria, welcome.
Thanks, Ange. I'm excited to be here.
Today, we're kicking off a brand new 10-part series where we're calling back to basics, a series focused on the core human skills that underpin excellent leadership. These aren't abstract ideas or corporate buzzwords. These are habits. And just like going to the gym, you build leadership strength through reps, practice, and intentional effort. Now more than ever, leaders are required to cultivate the people skills needed to get the job done. And in fact, a 2023 report by McKinsey found that 70% of employees said emotional intelligence in leadership was more important to them than technical proficiency. And I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
We've shifted from seeing humans as limitless resources to recognize people as humans first, then professionals at work. Emotional intelligence, compassion, and communication aren't nice to haves. They're the bedrock of performance, trust, and retention in today's workplace. This series is about grounding leadership in those fundamentals.
Exactly. So many leaders we work with say, I know what I should do, but in the moment I just react or I just have to react. And that's why today's episode is all about how to move from reacting to responding, from unconscious emotional patterns to conscious leadership choices. So, before we dive into the first core skill, let's set the stage. What inspired this series, Ange?
That's a great question. Honestly, we kept seeing this as a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So leaders, especially new or emerging ones, were overwhelmed. They were drowning in frameworks, certifications, performance metrics, but the gaps we were seeing, they weren't in knowledge. It was really about the behavioral side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And this, as we dub it, in human skills, listening, regulating, owning their voice.
Mm-hmm.
Adding a nice fact or tidbit into this, we've seen that Harvard Business Review study from 2022 showed that 89% of executives cited difficulty in soft skill areas like conflict management and active listening, not strategy or analytics as a top reason for leadership ineffectiveness. These are the reps that really create sustainable leadership.
Yeah, and if you skip these basics, the fancy tools don't land or you don't get the opportunity to practice them.
Exactly. So we said, what if we stripped it all down and built a 10-part leadership fundamentals series? Not about titles or theory, but just building better habits when it comes to leadership.
Just the human stuff.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Focusing in on reacting versus responding. What do we mean by this, Maria?
Yeah. So reactivity is that immediate, often emotional, autopilot response. It can be protective, defensive, even controlling in some cases. Responding, on the other hand, is intentional. It creates pause. And in that pause is where the power is. So we're really talking about building a pause muscle.
Yeah. I like that. And you're tying it back into those leadership reps. It sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest shifts a leader can make, especially under pressure. And that's why the mantra we use is pause, breathe, choose. That's a rep. That's a practice. Full stop, right? So you literally are taking a 6-second pause, because research shows it takes approximately 6 seconds to move from our amygdala reactive responses to activating our prefrontal cortex, where rational decision making lives.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of what this might look like in the wild?
Yeah, for sure. So imagine a team member pushes back on your idea in a meeting. We've all had this, right? Reacting might sound like, well, that's not what we agreed upon, or even shutting them down, or the conversation itself. Responding looks like taking a breath, thanking them for their inputs, and asking a curious question. Can you say more about what you see that I might be missing here? Or what brought you to that difference of agreement?
Yeah, it changes the entire tone. And it models something as well, which I think is sometimes forgotten when managers respond, is that it's not only you controlling, or not controlling, we won't use the word controlling, but harnessing the power of that moment, but also then you're modeling it in hopes that the person that you're talking to takes that with them.
Absolutely. And it allows you to lead in a way that is values aligned, not just emotionally fueled. So this is where the reps really pay off, to your point. And studies show that emotional intelligent leaders reduce turnover by up to 63% and increase team engagement by 76%, according to Talent Smart research.
Wow.
This is substantive.
Yeah.
And to put it into numbers or real world context, we're looking at 2 times someone's salary. So depending on the size of your organization, 63% in reduction of turnover, that equals millions.
That's huge. So how do we foster it in our teams?
Yes. Bringing it back down to grassroots. I think that's wise. First, to your earlier point, they model it.
Yeah.
It's visible and it's consistent. So when a leader pauses before responding, it really acknowledges their emotional response or openly course corrects. And it gives the team permission to do the same. Secondly, this creates space. So this might mean normalizing moments of silence and encouraging reflective check-ins after tough conversations, or saying things like, let's maybe take a moment to think through this before we respond.
I like that, because it's so underutilized, I think.
Very much so.
The name it to tame it.
Yeah.
Take the time.
Take the time. Yeah. And it's not coming from a place of passive aggressiveness. I want to be clear about that. It's really coming from a place as a leader, you're regulating and helping, or I shouldn't say it's your responsibility, but rather you're helping regulate your team members around you by example. And thirdly, they reward self-awareness. And again, coming in from a research-backed perspective, Gallup has shown that teams who feel psychologically safe, where self-awareness is validated essentially, are 12% more productive and 27% more likely to report excellent performance.
Wow. Yeah. So it's about shaping culture as well.
Exactly. It's not just about managing ourselves. It's about helping others develop the muscle too. So it goes back to, as a leader, you're the example of what regulation looks like.
Yeah. So what are a couple of simple ways leaders can start doing reps here?
Number one, we really want to practice awareness. Oftentimes you will hear on our podcast, or if you've worked with us in past friends out there, it's really starting from within when it comes to leadership. So it's noticing when you're emotionally charged, and that alone is a rep. So to your point, naming it to taming it. So if someone disagrees with you, is that a trigger? Or is that simply a conversational piece for you? How are you going to react to that? Maybe it's something totally different. Number 2, you can use physical cues. So you can anchor to your breath or plant your feet when you feel a reaction rising.
I know you and I even have like stuff on our desks. We're both rock nerds.
Yes.
So yeah, having a physical object to just like hold to keep you grounded. Yeah, you're anticipating, some type of conversation. Yeah.
It could be a stress ball. It could be a golf ball, whatever works for you. That could be your cue that you need to take, as you would say, take a beat or take a pause. Number 3, it's about creating that time. So even saying, let me get back to you in 10 minutes. This buys you the space to choose your response. Now, if we're in meetings, one tip or trick that has been reflected and validated back to us is taking a longer sip of water.
Oh, okay.
Because you may not be able to buy or ask for that 10 minutes of time and space. But when you're physically taking a drink of water, people respect the fact that that's your space because you can't talk when you're drinking water.
I mean, it could get messy. You could try.
But I don't know. I don't know.
I love that. So we often think speed is a strength in leadership, but slowing down is actually the power move, which I feel has probably become exponentially harder with our like instant validation culture that we're in.
Yes.
Everything needs to be instantaneous. But slowing down is actually the power move.
Right. And it doesn't mean necessarily all of the time slowing down to a snail pace.
No.
But instead of, what I picture in my head, instead of stomping on the gas, you're just gently accelerating through something, right? The other thing that was coming up for me when you were talking is that we need, as leaders, I believe we need to really ensure that we are allowing the time and space for things to be processed, because we don't function all of the same way. We don't learn the same way.
Totally.
And normalizing the fact that a conversation does not need to be started and stopped in an hour, but rather it could be a flow and a continuous conversation, and opening the invite for the same, whether it's good, bad, and different.
Yep.
Right.
Totally.
And I think also too, you said it earlier in our roundtable meeting with our Intuity staff this morning, Maria, it's not about being perfect. It's really about being intentional or conscious about building that muscle.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll share, for me, in any kind of conversation that's elicited a reactive response, I can feel like muscles tighten. I can maybe feel my face do a certain thing.
Right.
So
you're noticing what's going on in your body.
Bodily cues. So I think I would just outline for our listeners that practicing awareness it means many different things. An example for me is things happen in my body. I feel it and notice it. So I don't know if you have any
for me,
cues for yourself.
I agree. I lean into like how my body feels. My cue is like right in the middle of my back. It's super tense.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I know that a lot of the identifying males out there that we've coached do not lean into body functions as much as women do. And that's just a natural effect, which is okay. What I've heard from our counterparts is that it's more so around like sweaty palms or their heart's racing, or it's like physiological.
Yes. Yeah.
A little in a different way, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. More pronounced. Certainly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the other part I think that is often forgotten is asking your peers or your leaders, ensuring that you trust them to do so first, but asking for feedback. Yeah. So in stressful situations, how am I really coming off?
Yeah.
And do my does my vision or my awareness match your awareness?
Mm.
That's a really strong way to practice it. Or you can practice it with a coach.
Yeah.
Because they'll be able to help see those behavioral trends and reactions as well. The other thing that comes up for me with regards to self-awareness is reflection. And I know that that sounds fuzzy and warm, but it's
Soft.
it's not though, because you're doing the hard work or the hard lift, I would say, to build your self-awareness muscle. So you really have to try to think from a place of neutrality. How did people react to me? What were their words? What was their body language towards me? What did it feel like? So even that emotional identification is wrapped in there as well, I think.
So what I'm hearing is that until you can be proactively or preemptively self-aware, that taking the moments after a conversation, an interaction, whatever it may be, to reflect, and bring out the self-awareness.
Yes.
If at the onset you're not feeling very self-aware.
Correct.
Yeah. Cool.
And again, it takes practice.
Of course.
So it's starting to think about it like from the perspective of, if you are like me, for example, and you live and die and breathe your calendar, then it's just building in a quick buffer of 5 minutes between the meetings, so that you can think about those things in an efficient manner. Or maybe if you're someone that's uber intentional and Sundays are the day that you're prepping for the next week, then, you know, there's a trigger or something for you to prompt you to reflect upon a meeting, an interaction, etc.
So the second one that you mentioned, which was using physical cues, again, this would come more after you've exercised the self-awareness piece a bit. But once you can recognize that, like you said, maybe your heart rate's elevated, maybe your palms are sweaty, maybe your jaw's tight, maybe your shoulders are up by your ears, then, you know, do something to anchor your breath. So like plant your feet at your desk, or like you said, maybe have a stress ball, or maybe you have multiple cats like Ange, or give those a pat. So yeah, some type of physical tool to help you.
Yeah. I'm glad you said give those a pat, because I was picturing in my head, are people thinking that I'm just going to squeeze my cat?
No.
So that's good. That's
nice,
good.
Loving. Yeah. So then the third one was creating time. So even saying, let me get back to you in 10 minutes.
Yes.
Which I do only from how I take information and process it kind of way. So Ange knows that for me, I'm a post processor. So we can really like go deep and have a big brainstorm and have a really productive time together. But I then need to go away and let that sink in for, 24 to 48 hours. So I'm fortunate, I think, in the way that I process information, that I am already in the habit of saying, I need 5 to 10 minutes or 2 days, whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
But for those that maybe don't have that practice, is there any way that you would suggest getting used to saying, give me 5? Or is it just going to feel awkward?
It depends. And the reason why I'm saying it depends is because our culture at Intuitive Performance is built around integrity, authenticity, openness, candor, etc. And for us, we really feel strongly, I do anyways, about walking the walk and talking the talk. So it's taking the temperature of the culture of the organization, right?
Right.
What was coming up for me when you were speaking is, in certain organizations, it may be beneficial to phrase it as a question versus a statement.
Okay.
Hey, totally hear what you're saying. Enjoy all this information. I have some preliminary thoughts. They're this, but I'm wondering if I can take, 24, 48 hours or get back to you on Monday, whatever, with regards to my full thoughts while I really digest everything.
And I guess too, from a managerial perspective too, is offering that again, at modeling it in a way.
Yes.
So do you need to take we don't need a response right away. Do you need,
Absolutely. And there's the opportunity for leaders to ask those preferences.
Yeah.
And I think opportunity missed oftentimes is during onboarding.
Right.
How do you process information? How do you want to show up in meetings? Because some people don't like to talk, but they want to contribute in their own way.
Yeah.
So it's not forcing people in the quote unquote mold, but it is asking them to, again, going back to the reps, be self-aware enough and sharing the expectations that there is a safe space to talk about the same.
Yeah, I would say it also adds a level of accountability there too, because if, for some reason their outputs or their contributions aren't as great as they're needed to be, okay, let's go back. I noticed when we started that you outlined XYZ as your preference to process information or take information in.
Yeah.
Do we need to look at that again? Because it seems like, maybe it's taken you a couple days to get to the emails about X, Y, and Z.
Absolutely. So it's really about, I think what I'm hearing you say is it's twofold. Instead of leaders reacting to something not being done or done the way that they expect it, it's coming in and asking more questions, which leads into a totally other topic, which I'm sure I will cover.
Yes.
And there's also the accountability portion for the employee to identify their learning style, essentially.
Exactly.
Or the way that they're processing things so that there is a misconception or there isn't miscommunication. It really comes down to that two-way street.
Totally.
Coming full circle, the first step is that level of self-awareness and understanding what you need and or your triggers. Okay.
So moving from reacting to responding.
Correct.
Key step 1, practice self-awareness. Yeah.
And what was step 2?
It was the physical cues.
Okay, we talked about that.
Yeah. And creating time.
What about physical cues from the perspective of, so if you're a leader and you can see physical cues, I would suggest one-on-one, not in group meetings. And you can see the physical cues in your team members, but they don't see them.
Right.
What, if anything, are we responsible for?
Again, I think it's a similar thread to what we've talked about before on the podcast, which is creating a learning culture. If there's just a built-in conversation or curiosity around how you're showing up, I think that's how you start. I think there needs to be some type of communication or statement made if it hasn't been so from the beginning that, hey, I'm going to be, I think, outwardly focused on how we're showing up. You're going to see me modeling some new strategies that I've learned or want to try on or think could help the team. So I think just transparency.
Right.
About practicing.
And your intention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Transparency and intention, just literally sharing it with your team.
Yeah.
And then again, creating that ongoing dialogue about it.
And the story that I'm telling myself in my head right now is the ongoing dialogue could be something as simple as, hey, Maria, I think I'm noticing this. It could be something totally different. Help me understand.
Exactly.
And you know that me asking you that question is taking a pause, a beat.
Yeah.
It's taking the opportunity to flag that I may be looking to help you regulate and, pull a wrap up type thing. And it gives you an opportunity to be like, okay, I need to reflect on this and I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Or immediately, oh, wait, I didn't realize I was doing that thing again. You don't necessarily have to apologize because that's not the point when it comes to a learning culture, but rather, hey, okay, I see this, or no, I don't. This is what I meant.
Totally.
And again, that comes back down to what you had mentioned, the transparency of practicing. Yeah. And what I'm hearing that the theme around this is, going back to my original question, is when it comes to the responsibility of a leader, it's asking if that person wants to be coached one-on-one, right? Or wants feedback.
Totally.
And then 2, being able to do so in such a way that allows them to feel safe.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
An example that I can share, that hopefully we never move through again, but I worked with a team during the pandemic on completely new territory for everyone.
HR leaders, employees, the whole works.
Yeah. So this team was really struggling, and one of their managers introduced a 2-word check-in, which I've shared before, that it's a really simple, but I think very impactful tool. And so again, when you're introducing something like this, a global pandemic doesn't need to be the catalyst, but I'm sharing that as there was a very pronounced shift in how people were showing up at work. It was very tense. It was very emotional, all of the things. So, this manager wanted to acknowledge, but also tread lightly, just create space. So they just simply said, like, I just want to know when we have, our meetings or our check-ins, how we can proceed and take care of each other. And so it was just like, you give me the 2 words of how you're showing up. So if it's tired and scared, I know maybe we're not going to tackle big hairy things today. I don't or like if we do, we'll go gently and together.
Right.
So again, it doesn't need to be at that level. But that's just an example of when you're starting something new, that transparency piece.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect example, actually.
I notice my people are needing some support, or I'm noticing that I need to practice this new skill, and just tell your people, just have a conversation. And that alone, certainly in that instance, it allowed, that whole team to go from reacting to responding. So just setting the stage by simply openly communicating.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
Is there a third? I can't remember.
Create time.
Okay.
Which
I think that wraps into it.
I think so. Yeah.
Absolutely. For sure. So that's a wrap on our first Back to Basics episode, reacting to responding. In our next episode, we'll dig into the skill of moving from judgment to curiosity. This is one of my favorites.
Yeah. This series is about changing the way we think about leadership learning. It's not something we have to do. It's something we get to do because leadership lives in the human moments.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with a colleague, and keep practicing your reps. See you next time on the Human Side of Business.
Thanks for listening to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm glad you could join us. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated with our latest content, make sure to visit our website. The link can be found in the episode description, where you can subscribe to the podcast, sign up for our newsletter, and learn more about our whole person leadership services. Sounds interesting? Explore the Whole Person Leadership Cohort by Intuitive Performance, a unique program that offers unparalleled support to managers on every step of their leadership journey. Our program features evidence-based assessments, workbooks, group coaching, and interactive learning experiences to help you level up your leadership skills. Reach out today to apply to one of our upcoming cohorts. Until next time, take care and stay curious. Thanks for listening to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm glad you could join us. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated with our latest content, make sure to visit our website. The link can be found in the episode description, where you can subscribe to the podcast, sign up for our newsletter, and learn more about our whole person leadership services. Sounds interesting? Explore the Whole Person Leadership Cohort by Intuitive Performance, a unique program that offers unparalleled support to managers on every step of their leadership journey. Our program features evidence-based assessments, workbooks, group coaching, and interactive learning experiences to help you level up your leadership skills. Reach out today to apply to one of our upcoming cohorts. Until next time, take care and stay curious.